Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host. Let's get into this. So, hi guys. I hope all is well. Hope you guys had a good weekend. If this is your first time tuning in, hi, hello, welcome. Thank you. Get on up in here. Please follow us on YouTube at Inappropriate Radio TV. No periodic table or alien talk. However, you already know the creator came through with the message. Alright, so we are resuming to our autism series. The creator let me know that a few people didn't like this. I'm not here to offend anyone. No, I don't think I'm a doctor, but we are looking at this thing from a spiritual lens, and of course we will be pairing our conversations with scientific research. All right, you can make your own inferences. You can do your own research. This is just me doing my due diligence. All right, so Donald Gray Triplett, born 9/8/1933 in Forest, Mississippi. He is on record the first person to be diagnosed with autism. He was born in Forest, Mississippi, and he was said to be really good at numbers. He worked at a bank. He actually did have a college degree. He was also able to identify notes on the piano just by ear. Okay, now I think that's interesting because we already know what is the universe? Numbers, right? And then what was Satan in control of? The pathways, music, right? So I'm not saying that anyone is demonic or anything like that. I'm just saying these are two very spiritual things, music and numbers, okay? Interesting. Now, of course, this information can be skewed. Of course, there were other records, things that could be describing autism, and it wasn't really a real term until 1911 by some psychiatrist. I don't want to say some psychiatrist, but I don't have his name because I didn't want to take away from the topic. But again, you could always go look this up. Qatar now is said to have the highest amount of autistic diagnosis, okay, with every 1 in 66 people being diagnosed. Now, this is crazy because Qatar is also the place that has what? The highest dollar. Their dollar, their currency is worth more than everybody's, all right? So, I don't know. And then I started doing a little digging. And then it said that Nikola Tesla as well as Elon Musk are both autistic. Elon Musk is from the Serbia area, all right? His family are from Serbia, and Qatar is in that same area. So if you're following, I'm thinking I'm seeing a trend, all right, already. Then we started doing a little bit of research. So the first thing that I thought to be interesting was that, well, I think this is common knowledge, right? Everyone knows that there isn't an actual known factor and cause. There are just a few similarities, right? And the main thing that all autistic people have in common is them lacking the ability to have normal social interactions, okay? So that goes back to what? Energy, being sensitive to energy, not knowing how to digest the energy, okay? Of course, the brain is the most affected part of the body, and especially areas like the central nervous system. And then outside of the central nervous system, pathologies were found to be outside of the central nervous system. If you don't know that, that is the area where the spinal cord and the brain is connected. That is the combination of the two is the central nervous system, right? We all know that. This is where it started getting interesting because there's a disconnect in between that gut brain signaling, right? And then immune responses. So remember we talked about the vagus nerve and having instinct and, just really where all that thing comes from and how it looks on a scientific level, right? We talked about that like over a year ago already. Now, if you think about a person who doesn't have, that downloaded hard drive in them, what does it make you think of? And I don't have an answer. I'm just asking the question as instructed, okay? What do you think? And I think it's really interesting because a lot of people who are autistic are really funny with food. A lot of them have textures that they prefer over others. There are just some foods that you could never get an autistic person to try. It's just a lot of mysticism and skepticism around food. So I find it interesting that gut brain signaling area is affected. Okay. And I mean, these are the organs, the body parts. And then it goes back to, the whole spiritual versus flesh thing. Like, God doesn't need food, neither does demons or angels, right? So really spiritual people rarely eat either because they fast a lot. So this made me think that these people are angelic in nature. And there's this level of innocence to them, really. There is. And yeah, you don't have to be a child to be diagnosed with autism, okay? Adults get diagnosed every day, all right? I just wanted to throw that out there just to let people know it can be that some people are diagnosed later on in life. Maybe they're level 1 or high functioning, and that would, have them slip through the cracks, if you will. Now, this is so crazy because before they actually got this, diagnosis, and before they were actually in the thick of understanding it, autism was actually considered to be like a child type of schizophrenia. It was called Kanner syndrome, and it was also called infantile autism. It was, like I said, a child schizophrenia. So research shows that human DNA gets altered one time and then it takes a very long time for it to revert back to its original state. And then I started looking up the research because, of course, research is said to cause for at least 50 to 80% of diagnosis, right? Because we're still doing research and we still don't really know. So research is basically saying that autism could very well be a result of, inbreeding ancient generations. So, people who appear to be, not related just because they're of a different race, at least on the surface, right? And they find out they're like distant cousins I mean, it happens all the time. We see people get together, people get married, and they find out that they're related. And you sometimes see normal children, and then sometimes you don't. And then that could very well be the explanation, right? So this is when it got me to thinking. Remember, we had the segment about the 6 degrees of separation, and we talked about how now researchers, including psychologists and sociologists, are saying that the number is around 2 now. So it's not even 6 people in between you and a stranger. It's more like 2. So is the world shrinking, or are we just over polluted and we're becoming geographically closer to one another? Is it that our energies are pulling us to particular geographic locations that may very well be the same location, or at least in close proximity to where these ancestors would be? Because how close do you have to be genetically to someone in order for your genes to be considered inbreeding when there's been generations, okay, of different races cutting into those genes? Like, at what point do you say, okay, we're no longer related? Like, can you say that? You know what I mean? Like, how many generations has to pass for those links to be broken? And then it just goes back to what we've been saying here on Inappropriate Radio all along, that these links are important. And it just goes to show that if a link is broken off somewhere for whatever reason and they're weak, they can find another chain to latch onto and survive, and then make their way back to the link. Okay? And because it's been interrupted, now there's chaos connected to it. Now, it's a whole bunch of different energies that probably should have not been connected to it that are now connected to it. And I mean, obviously, if it happened, that's what the creator wants. But I honestly believe, since 80% of genes are the reason and the cause, and then there's supposedly no cause, because we can't really believe everything we read and everything we hear, right? A lot of people live a lie every day because they are going based off of what someone else told them instead of attempting to do their own research. So I really do believe that the inbreeding portion is really, really close to the answer more than any other answer. Honestly, I do. Of course, manipulation of the genes is more of a thing now in this day and age with technology, and then all these different, studies taking place. Of course, those are the factors, but I mean, real cases that are not coming out of some scientist's lab, that is not connected to some evil scientist, or at least a curious one, right? Really, honestly, I do believe that there is a really strong chance that people are procreating and reproducing with their long lost cousins. Like, I'm going to be real. And I think as we start to phase through this, not even just this, just learning about autism in the world outside of the podcast is going to start telling us those stories. But I'm going to end it here. I do love you guys. I hope all is well. I hope you are drinking your water, eating your fruit and vegetables, and sipping on your own tea because it's free. All right. Love y'all. Peace.